The fleet that alien worlds feared became their saspheres. He first signed came as silence. Across the Veloran system, listening stations that had never failed went quiet one by one. No alarms rang. No warning lights flashed. The stars simply disappeared from the screens, replaced by a deep black shape that blocked everything behind it. The Veloran observers stared in shock as the void slowly resolved into thousands of ships moving together as one. The fleet was enormous. Each vessel was larger than any structure the Veloran had ever built in space. Their surfaces were dark, smooth, and without visible weapons. No energy spikes, no active shields, no communication signals, just perfect alignment and impossible scale. The fleet did not rush. It drifted forward with calm certainty, like it had all the time in the universe. Panic spread faster than any message. On Veloran Prime, the Planetary Council gathered in emergency session. The elders spoke in quiet voices, but their fear was clear. Ancient records were opened. Old warnings were read aloud. Every civilization that had once encountered humanity described the same thing: sudden arrival, overwhelming capability, and permanent change. Some worlds vanished from history after humans came. Others survived, but never remained the same. "They are here," said Archivist Teln, his voice trembling as light flickered through his crystalline form. "The human fleet." No one asked why. Far beyond Veloran space, similar scenes played out across dozens of star systems. Sensors failed not because they were attacked, but because they were not built to understand something so advanced. Trade routes closed. Defense grids powered up and then powered down again when calculations showed resistance would be meaningless. The galaxy held its breath. Yet the human fleet did nothing that matched the fear. They did not broadcast threats. They did not demand surrender. They did not even acknowledge the defensive movements around them. Instead, small vessels detached from the larger ships and moved toward stars, planets, and gas giants with careful precision. On the dying world of Irsa, alien scientists watched as human machines entered their atmosphere. For generations, Irsa's sky had been thick with poison clouds. Crops failed. Oceans turned acidic. The people had accepted slow extinction as unavoidable. Then the humans arrived. Metal structures unfolded above the planet like gentle flowers. They released particles that bonded with the toxic gases, breaking them apart. Clouds thinned. Sunlight reached the surface for the first time in decades. No landing craft touched the ground. No humans were seen. A single message appeared on every Irson channel, translated perfectly into their language. "We detected atmospheric failure. Correction has begun." That was all. Confusion replaced fear. Why would a species feared for its power care about a world with nothing to offer? On the council station of the Interstellar Union, representatives argued endlessly. Some demanded immediate sanctions. Others insisted on evacuation. A few suggested opening communication, but their voices were drowned out by fear. "They are manipulating us," said one delegate. "No species acts without purpose." "They are not taking territory," another replied. "They are not claiming resources." "Then why are they here?" someone shouted. No one had an answer. As the fleet continued its slow journey, patterns emerged. Human ships moved toward unstable stars and weakened planetary systems. They adjusted orbits, cooled overheated cores, and redirected asteroid flows with delicate accuracy. Entire ecosystems were restored without a single shot fired or command issued. Still, the humans remained distant. On the outer edge of the Nareth expanse, an ancient species known as the Threx watched with growing unease. Their civilization had survived for millions of years by avoiding attention. They remembered humanity from a brief encounter centuries ago when a human science vessel had altered a nearby nebula to prevent a radiation surge. At the time, the Threx had been grateful. Now they were afraid. "They have grown," said the Threx elder mind. "What once required one ship now requires thousands. Why?" Deep within the human fleet, aboard a vessel called the Horizon Reach, Commander Elena Reyes stood before a vast display of star systems. She was human, but she carried no weapon. None of the crew did. The ship was not designed for battle. "Projection update," she said calmly. A holographic map shifted, showing probability lines branching into the future. "System Veloran," reported an officer. "Stellar instability at 42% within the next century. Civilization collapse likely." "Adjustment timeline?" Elena asked. 3 days, she nodded. "Proceed." There was no celebration, no pride, just quiet work. Humanity had learned long ago that survival was not about winning wars. It was about preventing losses before they happened. They had nearly destroyed themselves once, not through enemies, but through ignoring warnings. They would not let the galaxy repeat their mistake. Still, not all humans agreed with this mission. In distant colonies, debates raged about the cost of such effort. Entire generations worked to maintain the fleet. Resources that could have expanded human space were instead spent saving others. But the decision had been made long ago. If humanity had the power to help, then not helping was unacceptable. Back on Velorin Prime, the Council watched as the human fleet adjusted their star. Massive structures appeared near the stellar surface, absorbing excess energy and redistributing it safely. The star stabilized, tides calmed, climate models shifted from collapse to recovery. The Velorin people wept. "They saved us," whispered one elder, "without asking anything." Suspicion lingered, but gratitude grew stronger. The interstellar news networks struggled to redefine humanity. Old labels no longer fit. Conqueror felt wrong. Invader made no sense, yet calling them saviors felt dangerous too, as if it gave them power they did not claim. The fleet never stayed. Once a system was stabilized, the ships moved on. No bases left behind. No monuments. Only restored worlds and unanswered questions. As the fleet approached the core regions of known space, something unexpected happened. For the first time, an alien delegation sent a message. It was simple. "We do not understand your purpose. Please explain." The reply came seconds later. "We are preventing extinction." Nothing more. Across the galaxy, fear slowly transformed into something else. Respect, curiosity, hope. But deep within the data projections, hidden from alien eyes, the human fleet calculated threats not yet visible. Chain reactions that could erase hundreds of worlds. Failures waiting centuries in the future. The work had only begun. And the galaxy was about to learn that the most powerful species it had ever feared was also the one most determined to protect it. Part 1 ends here. If you want, I can now write Part 2 in the same style, same length, and same rules. Just say Part 2 Lico. The message from the alien delegation did not stop the human fleet. The ships continued their work as calmly as before, moving from system to system, correcting slow disasters that no one else had noticed yet. But the message did change something. For the first time, the humans answered more than one sentence. "We are preventing extinction," the reply had said. Then, after a pause that lasted several seconds, another message followed. "You are welcome to observe." The invitation shocked the galaxy. Observation meant proximity, proximity meant trust, and trust was something no one had ever offered humanity on such a scale. The Interstellar Union argued for days. Many feared this was a trap. Others believed refusing the offer would mean losing the only chance to understand the humans' true intentions. In the end, curiosity won. A small delegation was chosen. Scientists, historians, and diplomats from 6 different species boarded a neutral vessel and traveled toward the edge of human fleet space. They expected guards. They expected restrictions. They found none. A human ship detached from the formation and met them halfway. It was large, but its approach was slow and careful. Docking instructions were sent in clear, polite language. No weapons scanned their ship. No threats were made. When the airlock opened, the delegation saw humans for the first time in person. They looked ordinary. Commander Elena Reyes greeted them with a calm expression. She wore a simple uniform, no symbols of rank except a small badge. Her voice was steady, almost gentle. "Welcome," she said. "You are safe here." The aliens were confused. Some had imagined monsters. Others had expected cold machines. Instead, they saw tired faces, focused eyes, and people who looked like they had not rested properly in a long time. The delegation was shown through the ship. They saw no prisons, no weapons rooms, no trophies. Instead, they saw vast data centers, long observation halls, and crews studying stars with deep concentration. "This ship," Elena explained, "has not fired a weapon in its entire existence." One of the alien scientists asked the question everyone feared to ask. "Then why does the galaxy fear you?" Elena paused before answering. "Because once," she said, "we feared ourselves." She led them to a large projection room. A map of the galaxy appeared, filled with glowing lines and symbols. Some shone brightly. Others flickered, dim and unstable. "These are probability paths," she explained. not predictions, possibilities. She pointed to a dim cluster. This civilization will collapse in 300 years due to slow ocean loss. Another cluster. This one will lose its star in 500 years due to unnoticed core imbalance. The aliens stared in silence. We saw these futures once, Elena continued, but they were our own. Humanity had nearly ended itself, not through war, but through ignoring long-term damage. By the time they understood, it was almost too late. Entire ecosystems were lost. Billions suffered. Survival came at a terrible cost. They learned something no other species had learned so deeply. Time was the greatest threat, and planning was the greatest defense. When humans finally reached the stars, they carried that lesson with them. They watched, they calculated, and they realized something terrifying: they were not unique. The galaxy was full of civilizations following the same path, moving slowly toward disaster without realizing it. "So you decided to save us?" asked one diplomat carefully. Elena shook her head. "We decided to give you time." The delegation stayed for days. They watched human crews adjust stellar output with careful precision. They observed artificial intelligence systems that did not command but advised. Every major decision still required human agreement. "Why not rule?" one alien finally asked. "You could." The question echoed in the room. "Because ruling does not teach," Elena replied, "and dependency is another kind of extinction." The aliens returned to their people with stories that shook the galaxy more than fear ever had. Humanity was not hiding a weapon. Humanity was hiding a burden. They carried responsibility for futures that were not their own. Soon, cooperation began. Alien scientists offered local data to improve projections. Engineers shared unique technologies. Slowly, trust replaced distance. Worlds that had once powered defense grids now powered research arrays instead. Then the crisis came, not sudden, not violent, but massive. A rare chain reaction of stellar drift threatened dozens of systems at once. No single star would explode. Instead, gravity would slowly tear orbits apart. Planets would drift into cold darkness or fall into burning death. The projections showed it clearly. Without intervention, millions of years of life would fade away. The human fleet moved immediately, but even it was not enough. For the first time, humans asked for help. The request echoed across the galaxy. "We require assistance. This cannot be solved alone." There was hesitation, fear still lingered, but something stronger had grown: unity. Alien fleets arrived, not for war, but for work. Ships once built for defense were repurposed to stabilize orbits. Energy grids were synchronized across species lines. Knowledge flowed freely. No one took command. Humans coordinated, but they did not dominate. The operation lasted months. Entire civilizations worked together without conflict. When it ended, the galaxy remained intact. Something had changed forever. The Interstellar Union offered humanity a permanent leadership position. Titles, authority, recognition as protectors of the galaxy. Humanity declined. "We will not rule," Elena said during the final address. "We will assist, we will advise, but the future must belong to all of us." The fleet began to withdraw, not vanish, not disband, just move farther out, returning to quiet watchfulness. Worlds healed, stars stabilized. Cultures flourished. Centuries later, children across many species learned about humanity in history lessons. Not as conquerors, not as gods, but as caretakers. They learned a simple truth. The fleet that alien worlds once feared did not save them with weapons. It saved them with patience, restraint, and the courage to act without reward. And somewhere beyond the edge of known space, the human fleet continued to watch the future, carrying a burden no one else could yet see. Not because they were the strongest, but because they remembered what it meant to almost be lost. The galaxy did not return to what it had been before the human fleet arrived. It became something new. Years passed, then decades. The memory of fear faded, replaced by stories told in calm voices. Trade routes reopened, but now they carried more than goods. They carried shared knowledge, shared warnings, and shared responsibility. The human fleet remained at the edges of known space, rarely seen but never forgotten. They did not interfere unless the future demanded it. When they did act, it was precise and quiet, like a careful hand adjusting a fragile balance. Commander Elena Reyes grew older aboard the Horizon Reach. Her hair turned silver, her movements slower, but her mind remained sharp. She had refused many offers to step down. Not because she sought control, but because continuity mattered. Long plans required steady hands. One day, a new projection appeared. It was different from the others. This time, the threat did not come from stars or planets. It came from thought. Several young civilizations were developing faster than expected. Their technology grew quickly, but their understanding did not. They were beginning to shape their environments without seeing the long-term effects, not out of cruelty, but ignorance. Humanity recognized the pattern immediately. They had lived it. The fleet did not move. Instead, messages were sent, carefully written. Calm, respectful. "We see your progress," the humans said. "We also see your future. Would you like help understanding it?" Some worlds ignored the message. Others reacted with suspicion. A few answered. Those few changed everything. Human educators, scientists, and planners began remote exchanges. They did not give solutions. They gave tools to think, models, simulations. Questions instead of commands. What happens if this continues? Among the alien civilizations, a new term entered common use. It had no direct translation, but its meaning was clear. It described the act of choosing to protect the future, even when the present demanded faster reward. They called it the human choice. Elena watched these changes from her command chair. She did not smile often anymore, but when she saw young worlds choose patience over speed, her eyes softened. One evening, as she reviewed long-range projections, an unexpected signal arrived. It was not a distress call. It was an invitation. An ancient species, older than any known civilization, had been watching humanity from far beyond mapped space. They had remained silent for millions of years, observing cycles of rise and collapse. Humanity was the first species that had broken the pattern. The message was simple. "You have done what we could not. We wish to understand why." A meeting was arranged, not between fleets, not between armies, between minds. The encounter took place in deep space where no star dominated the sky. The ancient beings did not appear as ships or bodies. They communicated through controlled energy fields shaped gently to avoid harm. They asked one question. "Why do you help without ruling?" Elena answered honestly. "Because ruling would make us responsible for choices others must learn to make themselves." The ancient beings considered this. They showed humanity visions of countless civilizations they had observed. All had followed the same path. Power led to control. Control led to stagnation. Stagnation led to collapse. "You are different," they said. "You step back." Elena replied, "We learned the cost of stepping forward too soon." For the first time in recorded galactic history, the ancient beings shared their knowledge. Not technology, but memory, warnings written across time itself. Humanity became not the leaders of the galaxy, but its librarians, guardians of lessons learned the hard way. As centuries passed, the fleet slowly changed. Ships were redesigned not to grow larger, but to last longer. Crews trained successors who would never see the end of their mission. Humanity accepted this quietly. This was not a task for heroes. It was a task for generations. Children born on distant human worlds learned about Earth not as a place of glory, but as a warning. They learned why the fleet existed, why restraint mattered. They did not dream of conquest. They dreamed of balance. And far across the stars, alien children learned the same lesson. They learned that the most feared fleet in history had never destroyed a world. It had saved them by refusing to be worshipped, obeyed, or feared. It had chosen to stand beside, not above. One day, long after Elena Reyes had passed into history, the galaxy faced a question it had never faced before. The projections showed a future where the fleet was no longer needed. Civilizations had learned to watch their own futures, to share warnings, to act together without guidance. The human fleet reviewed the data carefully. Then slowly, deliberately, they began to dismantle parts of it, not all at once, not dramatically. They left knowledge behind, systems, tools, and then they stepped back. The galaxy did not collapse. It continued. The greatest success of the human fleet was not that it saved worlds. It was that one day it made itself unnecessary. And in the quiet space between stars, humanity finally rested, knowing they had done the hardest thing any powerful species could do. They had chosen to protect without owning, to guide without ruling, to save and then let go. Time moved forward in a way no single species could measure anymore. The galaxy had learned how to watch itself. Long-term projections were no longer rare or secret. Every major civilization now kept future models, not as tools of fear, but as guides. They compared outcomes, shared warnings, and spoke openly about risks that once would have been ignored. The human fleet was still there, but it was no longer the center of attention. Many of its ships had been converted into archives, drifting libraries filled with knowledge gathered over centuries. Others became training grounds, where beings from many species learned how to read time not as fate, but as possibility. Human crews were fewer now. Some ships carried no humans at all, only systems that maintained balance quietly. Humanity had not disappeared, but it had stepped fully into the background, and the galaxy was stronger for it. On a small, green world orbiting a calm yellow star, a young alien named Sarah stood beside a wide river. Her species had once feared humanity more than extinction itself. Now, she studied human history as part of her education. She did not see monsters. She saw a species that had learned restraint the hard way. Her teacher, an elderly scholar, spoke slowly as the class listened. "Power," he said, "does not decide the future. Decisions do." Saris looked up at the sky. Somewhere beyond the stars, the human fleet still watched. Not as guardians anymore, but as witnesses. On a distant human world, far from Earth, a child listened to an old story told by his grandmother. She spoke of the time when humans nearly lost everything. When oceans rose, forests burned, and silence followed where life once thrived. "We survived," she said softly, "because we learned to listen to tomorrow." The child asked the same question every human child asked at some point. Why did we help everyone else? The answer was always the same. Because no one helped us soon enough. Centuries passed, then something unexpected happened. A signal appeared from beyond known space. It was faint, unstable, and unlike anything the galaxy had recorded before. It was not a distress call. It was not a greeting. It was a question. The signal did not come from a civilization. It came from something forming, a slow awareness emerging within a massive cosmic structure. Not a being, not a machine, but something new. The galaxy panicked. Old fear tried to return. But this time the response was different. Instead of waiting for humans to act, the civilizations came together. They shared data. They debated calmly. They prepared responses based on understanding, not fear. Humanity watched quietly. They did not lead. They did not step forward. They waited. The galaxy answered the signal together. The response was careful, respectful, and curious. "We see you," it said. "We wish to understand." The signal changed. It stabilized. Whatever was forming did not become a threat. It became a neighbor. That moment marked something important. For the first time in recorded history, the galaxy faced the unknown without needing the human fleet to guide it. Humanity's greatest test had arrived long ago. This was the Galaxy S, and it passed. The human fleet received confirmation. The projections shifted. Long, stable futures filled the displays. For the first time since the fleet's creation, there were no major extinction paths left unresolved. The mission was complete, not announced, not celebrated, simply complete. Human ships began returning home. Some docked at worlds that had never seen humans in person. Others drifted into quiet orbits, their systems slowing, entering long sleep. Humanity did not disappear from the galaxy. It became part of it, no longer feared, no longer needed. Just present, in the deepest archives, a final record was written. Not as a command, not as a warning, as a memory. It described a species that once held the power to rule everything and chose not to. It described a fleet that could have conquered stars, but instead repaired them. It described a lesson learned too late for one world, but just in time for many others. The record ended with a simple statement, translated into every known language. The future is not something to control, it is something to care for. Long after the last human command ship powered down, stars continued to shine. Civilizations continued to grow, fail, recover, and grow again. And somewhere in the quiet space between galaxies, the idea humanity had planted continued to spread. That strength without restraint was fragile. That wisdom required patience. That saving the future sometimes meant stepping aside. The fleet that alien worlds once feared did not become legend because of what it destroyed. It became legend because of what it refused to become. And the galaxy remembered.